Steps in qualitative data analysis. There are particular steps which are followed in qualitative data analysis, and we are going to explore those steps in this session. The process of qualitative data analysis is based on 5 steps, and step number 1 is the organization of the data. So the data is organized, right? And it is transcribed. In most cases, it is transcribed, it is annotated, and the analysis might be carried out through softwares. Like, for example, there are various softwares for data organization are used, right? And the transcription is basically done for translating the data, and it's basically for cleaning the data, because the data was raw data in the beginning, but once it is transcribed, it is then the clean data, and the labels are given, right? So that's step number 1, that the data is organized, and is the part of organization, the data is transcribed. Then we have step 2. Step 2 is basically to identify a particular framework, right? So what kind of framework is required? Okay, so that's the step 2, where you would decide that a particular framework suits your data, right? It could be like exploratory or explanatory. So you may be explaining something, or you may be exploring something. So in the case of exploratory data, you don't have any precedence or maybe any previously available data, right? But for explanatory data, you may be explaining the same data in the light of a particular theory or model, right? So on the basis of your data, you would decide that which framework is available, right? For deciding framework, you must be reading a lot, right? So you should read, and read, right? And you should decide that which framework suits your data, right? And the framework is basically related to the coding plan, okay? So how would you code your data, and how would you do that coding, right? So it's the framework for coding which should be decided about the data in second step. In step 3, the data is sorted into the selected framework, right? So that the data is put into that framework, and it is coded, it is modified, and it is entered into that particular framework, right? So in step 2, you decide about the framework, and in step 3, you actually put the data into that framework so that it is sorted, and it is now ready to be analyzed, because it's coded in step 3, and it is modified, right? And it is entered, right? While step 4 is about the use of framework for descriptive analysis, right? So the first framework was for coding, right, and modifying. But now this is step 4, and here you're required to decide that which framework would be used for descriptive analysis. How would you describe? What particular framework would you use for the description of the data, right? Like, you would be looking for particular range of responses, particular themes, particular patterns, right? And particular attributes or characteristics, right? So what would be your framework? Because you are not actually going without any particular framework, right? So you are required to go and select a particular framework for your analysis, right? So are you interested? Do you need recurrent themes, right? And if themes are recurring, then what kind of themes are they, right? So you are required to fix a particular framework for step 4, right? And that is for descriptive analysis. So you would describe. These are the 4 steps. If you are doing it for the sake of exploratory data, but there is one more step. If you are doing it for for explanatory data, and for explaining something about a theory or a model which is already existing, then you need to further evaluate and apply a particular model. So then you would go for second order analysis. second order analysis is basically, the step which is used for explanatory data. For explanatory data, for example, you would be identifying particular themes, right? And then you would be looking for particular patterns, right? And then you would be building upon those sequences on the basis of themes and patterns and attributes and characteristics. And then those characteristics and themes, patterns, they are translated into research questions and then hypotheses, right? So you would be doing, formulating your research questions in this step. You would be just, hypothesizing about your study in this step. So therefore, the last step, which is second order analysis, it is, it is selected only for explanatory data. If your data is exploratory, you are studying some phenomena for the first time, then you should stop at step 4. And these are the 4 steps which are important and which are used for qualitative, data analysis.